Hey, welcome back. Time for another children's sermon. Yes, sitting in my chair drinking my coffee. And I got the Jesus Storybook Bible right on hand. Today we're going to be reading a story called The Man Who Didn't Have Any Friends. None. Here it is, all marked up. And this is the story of a man named Zacchaeus, who Jesus goes and visits with. You'll hear the story in just a second. But Zacchaeus was a guy that people didn't really like. He didn't have any friends. And yet Jesus still reached out and was his friend. This is all part of our ongoing discussion of the seasons of life here at Bethany. This week in the big church service, we're going to be talking about relationships. And so it seems fitting to read this story about a man who had no friends. Oh, no relationships to rely on or count on. So let's go ahead. We'll listen to the story like we always do, and then we'll head back here to talk about it. See you in a second. The man who didn't have any friends. None. There was once a man who didn't have any friends. None. Do you have any friends? Well, of course you do, but not Zacchaeus. Poor Zacchaeus didn't have any. You're probably wondering why. Was it because he was so short? That's not a reason not to like someone. Was it because he had a name that was hard to say? Well, neither is that. Even though he was short and he did have a funny name, that wasn't it. No, people didn't like Zacchaeus because he stole their money. Zacchaeus collected taxes. Taxes were what people had to pay the king. But Zacchaeus took more than he was supposed to and kept the extra money for himself and made himself rich. Everyone knew what he was up to, and it made them cross and grumpy. They didn't like Zacchaeus one bit. So they made sure he knew it by doing things like avoiding him and walking on the opposite side of the street and pretending not to see him and whispering things like, "There's that nobody who thinks he's a somebody," loud enough so he could hear. Anyway, one day a huge crowd gathered by the road. Jesus was coming to their town and everyone wanted to see him. Zacchaeus wanted to see Jesus too, but everyone was too tall. He tried jumping up and down, but that didn't work. He couldn't see a thing. Luckily, Zacchaeus had a good idea. "I'll climb that sycamore tree," he said. So he did. He was surprisingly good at climbing trees for a man who was so unusually short. So short that he had to take a flying leap just to get into his chair in the morning. From the tree, Zacchaeus had the perfect view, all the way down the road. Another minute and suddenly Jesus was at the tree. He stopped and looked up. Zacchaeus saw Jesus, and Jesus saw Zacchaeus. "Zacchaeus," Jesus said, "I'd like to come over to your house." Zacchaeus almost fell out of the tree. Come over to his house? No one ever wanted to come anywhere near his house, let alone inside it. The people saw this, and needless to say, it made them even crosser and grumpier than usual. They mumbled and murmured and muttered, "Why is Jesus being kind to that big sinner? Doesn't Jesus know him?" Zacchaeus scrambled down and took Jesus to his house. He was in a big hurry because he didn't want Jesus to change his mind. Perhaps Jesus hadn't heard about him. Perhaps Jesus didn't know about how he had been stealing, and how no one liked him, and how he didn't have any friends. But Jesus knew. He knew all about Zacchaeus and the stealing and everything, and he still loved him. Zacchaeus was ashamed. "Lord," he said, turning pale, "what I've done is wrong, but now I want to do the right thing. I will give the money back to everyone, 4 times what I stole." And that's just what he did. Jesus smiled. "My friend," he said, "today God has rescued you." Jesus loved Zacchaeus when nobody else did. He was Zacchaeus' friend, even when no one else was, because Jesus was showing people what God's love was like. His wonderful, never stopping, never giving up, unbreaking, always and forever love. Welcome back. Did you like that story? Pretty interesting, huh? The way that Zacchaeus was looked down upon by everybody else, both literally and figuratively, right? He was short, and so people looked down on him. And yet Jesus saw him up in a tree and said, "Zacchaeus, I'm going to your house." So here's what I want us to think about today. Oh my gosh. I've got a $5 bill here. Would you like this? Should I mail it to you? If I was going to give you the $5 bill, you'd want this, right? There's a decent number of things you could get with $5. But watch this. I crumpled it up. Look at it, it's all ugly now. It was this nice clean $5 bill. Now it's just this little ball of paper. Do you still want it? Of course you do, right? Why do you still want the $5 bill? Because it's still worth $5, isn't it? Doesn't matter what it looks like, how many crinkles or crumples it has. This is still good for $5. It's the same way with Jesus and us. Even if we've done bad things, even if we've made mistakes, even if we're like Zacchaeus, Jesus still loves us and sees worth and value in who we are. Jesus will forgive you for your mistakes. Jesus wants to have a relationship with you, even if you feel crumpled up. And even if you have people who tell you that you're no good, it doesn't matter. You still have worth and value in the eyes of God. And so that's what I want us to be thinking about this week, and realizing that we have a relationship with God, not because we're good enough to have a relationship with God, but simply because God loves us and God sees worth and value in us no matter what. This week we need to put our faith into practice, right? That's what we're always talking about. So here's your homework for this week. I want you to write a letter or make a phone call to a friend who you think might need some support at a time like this. Maybe it's a grandma and a grandpa or an uncle and an aunt, but reach out to somebody who might be feeling a little sad, might be feeling a little bit like Zacchaeus. Reach out to someone who might be feeling like they're not worth anything right now, and help them know the love of God in their life by giving them a call or sending them a note, maybe an email, text message, whatever you can think of. That's your homework for this week. Just remember, God loves you no matter what. No matter how you feel, no matter how wrinkled and crumpled, no matter how short you might be, no matter if you're like Zacchaeus, God loves you no matter what. I'm Pastor Nate. This has been our Children's Sermon. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.